Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cancelled Media's Thank God That Didn't Happen. And this is our first episode one. I, uh, I don't need to introduce myself. I will leave it up to our host, Lex Perillo.
Hello, everybody. My name's Lex Perillo. I am a part-time camera person, videographer, editor, and sometimes writer, and hopefully big-time director in the future. That's my true end game. And on the show, it's just a bunch of us that love just talking about stuff that happened or didn't happen because we're all nerds here. Let's face it, we're all dorks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want everyone else to introduce themselves. So, first, here, Zachary Lambert. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hey, I'm Zach. I'm a part-time videographer, editor, animator, and hopefully a storyteller.
Jack?
And I'm Jack Nelson, kind of in the same boat as everyone else. And tonight we'll be talking about a very special canceled project from the 1990s. Lex, take it away.
All right. And the canceled project that we are going to be talking about, and this has been trending a little more recently. I've been seeing it in my feeds of stuff, and that is the canceled James Cameron Spider-Man movie from the 1990s. So I wanted to recap with a little history lesson of how everything came to be, of how Cameron came onto the project. So in the late 80s, early 90s, James Cameron was approached by Carolco Pictures. They were an independent film studio for like 2 decades, and then they filed for bankruptcy like late 90s. And so they had already written a script for Spider-Man. Then James Cameron said he didn't want to use that script. And so they were like, okay, then write your own script treatment. And his treatment was literally like a script, like a significantly shorter script than a normal script, with a lot of details and some of it leaving up to his imagination that he hasn't jotted down yet. And so when we go over this script, this the reason why I put it on, thank God that didn't happen, because this is kind of a doozy for me.
The
And
script exists online for anyone that's curious of seeing it. Lex and I have read through it. I don't know if Zach or Ben
Yeah, I have.
I'm
Yeah,
completely
It is
blind.
quite
I've read through it, and
quite a
I've watched some material on it to try and better understand the excuse my French, but mindfuck that is the script.
It kind of has the whole very dark, gritty 90s anti-hero thing to it. But
Like the Batman, but with Spider-Man,
yeah,
and a lot of weird dialogue.
we'll see if
Yeah.
that works. But
yeah. So, do you guys want to just start with some parts of the script? We won't be reading, like, we'll be going through the whole script, but we won't read every little part of it. We'll just
if
skip
you'd like
ahead.
to, you want to give us like a synopsis? Because I've read through and picked out a couple of things that I would like to bring up. But if you want to give us like a synopsis of what the movie would have been.
So, the synopsis is going to take a little bit. So, in James Cameron's Spider-Man script, what I have here, it starts with a little fade in of just a spider in the moonlight going down, and a camera pulled back, and we see Spider-Man's eyes in the darkness, and then he emerges, and we have this giant cityscape he says in the script, he says, as we pull back, city lights have come into view and now skyscrapers, but they are above us, sticking down into frame like the mothership in Close Encounters. Camera rotates now 180 degrees. That was one of my first notes. I was like Close Encounters, LOL. It's and the way like Spider-Man in the script it says figure voiceover. It's clearly Spider-Man. Like he always does internal monologue, but here it's a very grim dialogue from Spider-Man. I wrote it down as very Frank Miller-esque description of the city and its people. There's a and but yeah, it's one way to open a Spider-Man movie.
It also starts with Spider-Man already as Spider-Man. You know, we start with his voiceover and he's hanging out on the World Trade buildings, and then it jumps back to the beginning of the story, back before Peter gets his powers.
Oh, I forgot that this and the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans were both supposed to take place, before 9/11.
Yeah,
It's a
the
crazy
features. The final confrontation takes place on the World Trade Center building, so
Yeah.
Probably for the best that it didn't. So we get a little bit of his home life. You know, he's 17. He's in the bathroom popping a zit in the mirror. He's described as very nerdy.
How
and
charming.
Very weird. Yeah. So he eats breakfast with his Aunt May and Uncle Benjamin.
yeah, I couldn't tell if they would call him Benjamin the whole movie or if
Do
they
they?
would call him Uncle Ben.
Yeah, it's described as them. They are clearly past their prime and a little too old. I think Ben is still working.
Whenever I hear there's Ben and then there's Benjamin, which I can't based off of how many times it was just drilled into my head in grade school, Benjamin always comes up with Benjamin Franklin. I can't picture anyone else other than Benjamin Franklin.
So we
Picture me, motherfucker.
and so he goes to Forest Hills High School instead of Midtown High in New York.
I think it's a better name. Midtown. Oh, it's the middle of the town? It's in between downtown and the high town? I don't know.
Oh man, how would I have known?
Wow! It's just, I don't know. I just feel like Midtown's a little simple. I mean, I don't know. I'm picking it to pieces. It's stupid.
Yeah. But yeah, it's describes Peter as a bright kid. He doesn't have many friends. Actually, it describes him as having no friends when you read through it.
Ricky.
He is ostracized for his interest in science, and I love this description. Our MTV culture frowns on people who think too much. Intellectual curiosity, decidedly unhip. So I at least appreciate Cameron for sticking up for the dorks.
Mhm.
But
Man, Peter Parker's unhip. He's unradical.
Free thinker!
yeah. But so he goes into the school, and so he meets, and so he finally is talking to MJ, and her name is actually Mary Jane Watson. They kept that, and so he is in class with her, and they need to do a project together in biology. And so Mary Jane clearly doesn't want to do any of that, but she needs to pass the class. Otherwise, she won't graduate with a B average. And her parents won't buy her a car like they promised. They go a little bit into
Not
MJ.
the car.
They go.
No. So they really get her locked into the school thing, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Which is weird because they actually described what her home life is like, and very, very abusive.
Oh
So,
yikes!
almost very
In all
similar to
fairness,
the
that's accurate.
Sam Raimi Spider-Man, where it like brought in the abusive father.
Yeah, you
Uh,
will see so many similarities in the script to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. It's pretty uncanny.
it's got to be
Where I think
intentional. You mean Did you mean the Columbia Pictures people, like those people?
no, this is a different studio
Oh,
because Spider-Man around this time. The reason why it took so long for a Spider-Man movie to get made is because there were a bunch of studios that claimed that they had the rights, and it was just a bunch of lawsuits, and it was tangled in a literal web. Well, not a literal, an act like a web of
uh, a
lawsuits. And
metaphorical web. I get what you mean.
yes, metaphorical. Thank you. And it just took so long. And
Yeah.
then in the late '90s, uh, Bill Jemas, who came in charge of Marvel, he was like a studio executive person, and he was put in charge, and he knew people in Hollywood, and he kind of like fixed a lot of issues. That's why we ended up getting Marvel movies and a lot of good Marvel comics. Marvel Knights was a result of
Wow.
that. So we would not have Kevin Smith on Daredevil. We would not have Garth Ennis on Punisher. We would not have Bendis on
Those early movies
Jessica
are
Jones.
they're so great.
I'm talking about the comics rather than like the movies, but we do get the X-Men, we get Spider-Man, we
Yeah.
get Fantastic Four, unfortunately. Uh,
Yeah,
anyway,
those movies kind of hurt. I mean like I don't mean to sidetrack, but yeah, those Fantastic Four movies, they do be a real Reddit moment, huh?
Baby
yeah,
uglies, you know.
hopefully they get it right the next time.
Here's to hoping.
Yeah, so we're back to that. So Peter knows he's not going to be able to ever go out with Mary Jane, and Mary Jane is going out with Nathan McCreary, aka Flash. He couldn't even get Flash's real name right.
Oh boy.
His name is like Eugene Thompson.
Yeah, I remember it being Flash Thompson, right? Yeah, like usually.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's weird. He's a snob and he
Thompson.
drives a Porsche.
It's Thompson. Flash Thompson.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Is that integral to the Spider-Man story? The fact that he comes from a different like socioeconomic class than the rest of his classmates?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because
Typically.
because Peter's always been like an honor student, and he's
Poverty. He's always been like, yeah, like that poverty like high grade student, and Flash has always been that like high wealth low grade student, you know?
yeah, that's always been kind of Flash. Flash does eventually get like better, but in this he's not good whatsoever. So later they go on a field trip, and there's a genetics lab at a university that Peter hopes to attend to, and they are researching flies, genetically enhanced flies. And so what they didn't see was one of the flies got out, and then a spider goes down and then eats the fly, and then gets the mutated in it, and then the spider bites Peter, and then once he leaves, he once he gets bit, he goes home.
I don't know about you guys, but that feels so overly complicated for the
Yeah.
classic Spider. Like, rather than trying to take it a different way, they just went like, we can't have it the same thing, but let's stick with the original. at
We
the same
can't have a
time.
radioactive spider, but let's have a radioactive fly that the regular spider eats, and then it becomes radioactive.
Oh, yeah.
It had to be the grandma that ate the fly and then the other thing, the
Yeah, no,
house.
exactly. It's dumb. I don't understand why he did that.
Ugh.
Because it's like, why not just cut out the middleman and just go straight to the spider?
Seriously.
The
Spider
lion
attacks
that
Peter.
I
what's
mean,
that
from
children's
reading
book
the
where it's like
script, I sort of can get where he's coming from, especially in regards to the villain later.
Mhm.
But I don't think both of their backstories work out that way that well.
Hmm.
Yeah, uh so Peter runs home, and then he avoids his aunt and uncle, and he starts to have like psychedelic dreams.
Peter goes through puberty.
Yeah, like remember that scene in Sam Raimi's
Not
Spider-Man, the
again.
first one, where he has that whole like weird web hallucination? That's
Oh, yeah.
exactly what happens here.
Okay.
But in real life, because he wakes up with it, right? He wakes up like in bed, covered in web.
Actually, no, that's a different time, because he wakes up and realizes that he is 80 feet up on on a high tension tower, only
Oh,
in
yeah,
his
that's right.
underwear. So he wakes up on top of a building and like, holy shit, what's going on? Like he's scared out of his mind. And so he climbs down, and he tries to sneak back inside, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off style runs through the fences, hops back in. He gets ready for school, and he just doesn't feel good. And then uh he just feels the power flowing through him. Like he can feel how like graceful he is when he like leaps and runs.
Automatically, he's an acrobat.
Yes. So he goes into the bathroom in his house, he rubs his wrists, and he sees little like things on his wrist. So, no, in Spider-Man 1, where he has that like slight little like web patch. So in this, it's a little more mutated. He has like some sort of like spider
He
like
develops like a
thing.
spinneret, right?
Yes, he develops a spinneret. I was trying to remember what it was called.
Yeah,
I was like, that's too much. That's kind of gross.
Which I'll have more thoughts when we cover the plot, but one, I'm surprised that that original idea came from the James Cameron movie and not the Sam Raimi movies. But also, like it adds a bit of like body horror too, especially if they were when they had the idea for this to like really showcase these spinneret growths coming out of the wrist, like. That could be a little gross seeing that.
Oh, honestly, yeah, like it's like a little bit of a touch of like Man Spider.
Yeah.
Yeah, in ways that a human shouldn't be, you know?
Yeah, and then he sleeps on it. The next day he wakes up. He thought he would be like outside, but he's still in his bed. And then this is the scene where he lifts his blanket and reveals the sticky white mass completely covering him, gluing him to his bedding.
Nocturnal
I'm like,
emission.
Jesus Christ.
Reading this made me as uncomfortable as watching the movie Teeth.
Yeah. And so he screams, and his aunt and uncle are like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just,
Whatever you do,
puberty."
come in, please.
Yeah, so he's just horrified by it, but yeah, it just doesn't bode well for him. And then, I'm just gonna skip a couple of parts, and he starts like,
most of what happens next is like montages of Peter figuring out his powers, and he starts to design his costume.
Yeah.
The usual, the good works.
Yeah. And then in biology class, he finally tells his teacher that he wants to do his project on spiders. Mary Jane thinks it's pretty gross. She thinks spiders are revolting. So
Well,
Peter practices
He
his
won't
skills
later.
more.
He doesn't later.
Yeah. Oh god. I can't wait for like Ben's reaction to this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We'll get there. It'll be fun. So he practices in like a junkyard. You know, he's just trying to like come to grips with himself, and he leaps out at night and he goes from roof to roof, and actually gets a hold of his webbing, and he he starts swinging left to right. Well, he actually like, goes up on a high rise, and then he gets too cocky. Even though he knows he can stick to walls, he slips and falls, but his webs like catch him, and then he lands fine. But he was like, "Oh my gosh, that was terrifying," but that was actually pretty cool.
huh. That's all I can say.
That sort of showcases how, like, it doesn't seem like from reading the script that Peter thinks about using the web to move around. At first, it seems like he just thinks of jumping and running and climbing on walls, but it's like a moment of panic makes him think of web swinging.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, he has this little monologue in his head where he's like, I've become some sort of creature in the night, I retreat into the darkness. And it's just like, okay, we got you, Batman. It's a little too Batman for me.
No, calm down, Betsy.
Yeah, I love Batman, he's my guy, but this does not fit Spider-Man for me. So he goes to Mary Jane's house, swings there, and spies on her while she's undressing.
Great.
Lovely
Spider-Man
Spidey.
must be put
Very
on a
warm.
list.
Thank you,
I mean,
Spider-Man. Very cool.
I mean, any ordinary teenager, sure, but Spider-Man's at least got some morals, right?
Well, let's be fair. In the script, he doesn't go there to spy on her undressing. He goes there to like see what her home life is like, and then he sees her through the window, and then she starts undressing, and then he literally like falls out of the tree, right? Seeing that and just swings away.
Yeah.
It's not like he goes there to be a voyeur, you know.
What a dirty
Yeah.
boy. What a dirty Spidey.
I will defend Leonardo DiCaprio's Spider-Man where he deserves it.
Leonardo
In this
DiCaprio?
non-existent world. Yeah.
Now, my
Exclamation
question is,
point.
what happens when Mary Jane turns 25?
Yeah. But so he tries to figure out what he wants to do, be the man spider or something like
Be the
that.
Japan Spider. No.
I am the emissary of hell.
Not again.
Through the script,
Yeah.
it does sound like Peter develops confidence through the Spider-Man persona.
Yeah. So he then creates his costume, which actually sounds like it could be good. Like the description is he buys a snappy lycra dance skin at a dance studio. It is red and midnight blue with liquid thread. He draws goofy web patterns all over it. A black spider on his chest and a big red spider on his back. He tries it on. Not bad. The fishnet over his head disguises his features just enough. Is cut eye shapes out of black material and glues them on. Big jack-o'-lantern eyes, wise and a little wicked in their shape. That sounds like Spider-Man to me. And what he does about his spinnerets, because he doesn't want people to think he's like a freak, because he's already an outsider, like I'm a freak, angsty. He puts fake
Oh,
web
the
shooters
creep.
on it. Was
Yeah,
that?
he sort of tricks people into thinking that he has the traditional Spider-Man web slingers that are like artificial formula that he creates in a lab, which I think honestly is a really good way to combine the two. You know, both artificial swingers and the natural stuff.
Why does he
Yeah.
wear? He wears the fake ones to cover up the gruesome truth.
Yeah, he
Yes.
doesn't want people to see. So in the movie, in the script, it must be big enough that people can see the spinnerets.
Mhm.
So he covers them up with fake ones fake web slingers that he makes.
That's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gives me some thoughts as to where I think this movie was gonna
They're
go.
just like on him and just like
Yeah, probably just like a real spider.
eh.
Yeah, so he then since he's got his whole thing working out for him, he goes and he makes public appearances. He's like, I am the Spider-Man. And so he forms tricks at like parties, and he gets paid a couple things. He gets a booking agent.
Like an
and
actual
he does
Spider-Man in real life.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he
Super
gets-
Mario
going
in
through that,
real
and
life.
He ends up like the peak of his career. He starts doing like the Tonight Show, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
basically, or some variety show or something like that, where he does stuff like that. And so he tells the interviewer that he built his wrist shooters himself, and that the webbing formula is a secret, but that the chemical process is similar to rayon, which I'm not familiar what that is, but uh, it gives people an explanation.
Fake explanation, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. He just dug something out of his butt and just was like, "Hey, here."
He's a nerdy kid. He'll come up with something.
Yeah, he'll just over-explain everything, and everyone will be like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh."
So yeah. So there's a guy that's watching Spider-Man on TV, and Spider-Man's VO is about this guy that lives up in this high-rise mansion, and he's wearing this very expensive suit. He has slick back hair. He he comes off a very wealthy person. He kind of sounds like Norman Osborn, but he isn't.
Mhm.
His name is Carlton Strand. That's his name. And Carlton Strand is is basically this guy that runs he runs a company that like allows him to like funnel other like bad uh, bad guys and stuff like that, and he basically uses his big thing as a thing for other criminal fronts. If
He
that's
runs a Ticketmaster. He takes the surcharge fee off the top of everyone's purchase.
yes, exactly. And so this scene is very it's fucked up what happens. So he has this girlfriend that he occasionally that he like knows, and so I'm trying to remember what her name is.
That's like Cordelia. Right?
Cordelia. It's like Cordelia, and so she's like, "Hey, Strand. Hello, Carlton. How are you?" And he's like, basically like, "I'm doing good." And she's like, she's wearing like a suit. She's wearing like a suit underneath, like a rubber wetsuit, as they say here. She opens up her silk robe. She's wearing a wetsuit, and Strand says, "I want you, not rubber." And Cordelia's like, "No, Carl," and he's like, "Yes." And then he like embraces her and kisses her with passion, as it says in here. And then it electrocutes her, and she goes limp.
My God.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So his power. So he's like, God damn it. And he reaches over and touches her body with his electricity powers and revives her.
Basically, cardiac arrest.
And she's like, please, let's not do that again. Like, we need to stop doing this. And it's like, does this happen before? Jesus Christ.
It's at this point you get they do like a flashback in the script, and
Why we got
so
power.
they give you the backstory for where Carlton gets his powers from, and it's kind of weird because it's like what he's running a mission for the CIA, right? He's like a soldier, correct?
Something like that. He's some sort of like criminal.
And they go to an area called somewhere in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's somewhere in New Mexico. Climbs a fence and like a lightning field house, and
Yeah, the
he
lightning field house.
caught between the gay
It's like an area that's supposed to collect and harness like lightning bolts from the sky, and he like wanders into it, like Bruce Banner from the Incredible
Yeah.
Hulk.
Wow.
almost like that. It's kind of like a slight art exhibit.
Yeah, gets hit by the lightning, and because of that, gets lightning powers.
Yeah, and then he like and so everyone, the people there think he's dead, and he basically says, he basically awakens and then shocks them, runs away, does a bunch of stuff, and then he goes to near a criminal gang, and the gang leader is like, hey, we're gonna do something to you. I don't remember what that is, but we're gonna do something. And it's like, no, you're not. Brrr. Shocks him and kills the leader. And he's like, anyone else want a piece? And they're like, no, how you doing, boss? But yeah, so that's how he came into power. And he's the ticket master guy. And
I mean, not only does he have like standard electrical powers, but it also like explains in the script that he has, like he can touch a storage device on a computer and instantly know what's on your computer by absorbing the electricity out of it. He can learn way faster than anyone else because he just listens to electricity to get the information.
He just smells the air and he's like, I smell you got pirated games on your computer.
Essentially.
yeah, basically.
And he uses that he takes over that gang, and he takes it from like a 2-bit gang to like worldwide criminal heritage status.
That's wild.
And then we cut back to Spider-Man after we're getting all that backstory.
Yeah, so yeah, hopefully that would get cut down in the movie. So he's basically been slipping. He's losing sleep. Like, being Spider-Man has been draining him. Like, and Uncle Ben has like a heart-to-heart with him later, being like, "Hey, I know I'm not your dad, but hey, if you just need to like talk, I'm here." And he says, I'm okay, Uncle Ben. And Uncle Ben walks away, and in his mind, he thinks, I have failed. So it's a little doubt from Uncle Ben. I'm like, oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, that is sad. Because was Peter actually doing fine?
He was struggling, trying to balance Spider-Man life with, regular high school.
Yeah.
I honestly think, like, one of the most crucial things to humanize Peter's whole recognition of, his morals and, the whole statement of, with great power comes great responsibility. The Uncle Ben situation needs to be done just right. And I'm curious how it would have been received with this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so that happens. MJ doesn't like the project very much, and he like describes some stuff about spiders, and it's kind of creepy the way he describes it.
Like serial killer type level.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah. Wait,
so
are we
he's
talking
like,
about the bridge scene?
no, not yet.
Not
We'll
yet.
get
Okay.
there. We got a long way to go. So he says
Okay.
he tries to get her to see the beauty in spiders, how perfect they are, how amazing, how their engineering is astounding, how flawless they are as predators, how adaptable, etc., how amazing their web making ability is, and just all of that stuff.
Crazy talk.
And so, yeah, yeah, he tells her how species actually care for their young. The mother spider can distinguish the vibrations in the web caused by her own young from the movements of prey of enemies. They see by touch.
Yeah, that is pretty bougie.
Yeah, and it actually says she's kind of grossed out, not by Peter, but by the facts. And so they
Yeah.
go their ways, and so Peter is like walking on his way out of school, and then from the bushes, I believe he sees Mary Jane and Flash talking. They're arguing, and Flash slaps her across the face and abuses her.
Well, ain't that a flavor saver?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so later that night, uh, Flash is leaving from his gymnastics practice, and he
I
goes
find it
to his
funny. Is
car.
that the original character for Flash? Was he a gymnast? I just find it funny that Flash is a gymnast in this one.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I read the Stanley stuff. I own most of it on digital. But he's a jock. He's just a jock. But
I mean, they also say he is the football captain, so this man's double dipping.
it's true.
Man's got his
So
hand in 2 candy jars.
both are not sweet.
Mm.
Well, to us. But so Peter drops in on Flash as he's leaving, and he just beats the ever living shit out of him and destroys his car, slaps him, backhands him,
Wow.
and like, s- and just like, just he threatens him. He leans over. It says Peter leans close to Flash and tells him to stay away from Mary Jane, or else.
This is definitely we haven't talked about it much up until now, but the script makes Peter very much struggle with his humanity and the responsibility of being Spider-Man. He's very much in this movie tempted by what he can do with these powers and how he can get back at the people that bully him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, and it even says like he liked doing that to him.
Yeah, he like destroys the car, right?
I think so, yeah.
Doesn't he where is it? Doesn't he rips a pole, he rips like a stop sign out of the ground and just beats the car to pieces.
Yeah.
Which holy shit, like good thing the early 90s was not a time where security cameras were everywhere.
Yeah.
That's
And then
insane,
we juxtapose that scene with a little lighthearted scene of Spider-Man saving a person. So this woman is getting like mugged in the street, in like an alleyway or the street. And so he goes down and he helps her, but now they're like both beating on Spider-Man, and she's like, "Leave my husband alone." I'm like, "Oh no."
Mm.
So that didn't go very well.
Yeah, sounds it.
That also sort of shows the more he Spider-Man has an arc in this script about dealing with the more complex nature of human morality. Like he jumps in because he thinks that this man is abusing his wife, and then when he goes to save the woman gets mad at Spider-Man for interjecting between a personal affair.
Wow.
So there is like some complexity to this, but I think it gets a little weirder on that complexity at the end.
after that, Spider-Man appears on another show. He does all of his little tricks, and then a woman approaches him, and it's Cordelia, and she hands him a card, and the card says there are others like you with a name and address on it. And so he looks up, and she's gone. And so he goes outside where he sees her get in a limo. And then as she gets to the car and it pulls away, it's this guy who's built like a brick shit house. His name is Boyd, and he's an enforcer to Strand. And so he punches him, and it's like punching cement. And when he pulls his hand out, he sees sand. Enter Sandman in the
Dun, dun,
script.
dun.
Da, 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 da.
He didn't even get his name right. It was Flint Marko.
Flint Marko. He's
Yeah.
doing it for his
Well,
daughter.
at least they call him Sandman though,
Yeah, they call him Sandman in the script.
because the main villain in this is supposed to be. I looked it up. It's supposed to be Electro, but I don't know why they call him Carlton Strand.
Carlton Banks. It's not unusual to have electricity powers. Da, 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 da.
Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, so they have
little-
a little fight.
A little
They have a
tussle.
little fight.
Like
And
lovers.
Sandman leaves through the gutters through the gutters of the street.
Mhm.
Which, from Peter's perspective, he has no idea who this person was, why they attacked them, or why they just leave. But
It makes him more aware that there are others like him.
yeah, this is actually the first person that he runs into that has a power such as him.
Wow.
Yeah. So the next day, Peter learns that making money as Spider-Man is not as easy as he thought it was going to be. TV shows that can't pay him cash, so his booking agent has to cash the checks for him. So Uncle Ben drives him to the booking agent, and then the agent says that he can't give him the money. He's like, the agent says, "Go ahead. You want to call the cops? Call them. I'm sure they'll be happy to press charges for you the second you take off the stupid mask and show them some ID." Because if people don't know who Spider-Man is, then they're like, "Who's this money going to?" Which is a very Spider-Man thing. That actually happens in like issue 1 of Spider-Man. He tries to cash in his check at the bank, and they're like, "Spider-Man, can you show some ID?" And he's like, that's the whole thing of secret identity. I can't say who I am." And they're like, "Well, then you can't cash this check. Sorry."
Which I gotta say, I think I really like about this. Well, in any Spider-Man product that does that storyline, but I just like the fact that he can't cash in on his own merchandise.
Mhm.
I
Oh
think,
yeah, merchandise gets made about him all the time, and he makes nothing from it.
I think
I
that's
mean,
even
even in
funnier.
the Spider-Man video game, you can wear like his own branded underwear, and he complains about the branded underwear not being merchandised.
It's the gamer moment of the century.
Yeah. And so as he leaves, a robbery happens. It's not to the agent, but it's in the same area. And so there's this guy, and Peter notices he has a tattoo of a cobra on his hand. And thief runs past him, looks like he's carrying a bunch of money, and the cop that was chasing the guy was like, "Why didn't you stop him, Spider-Man?" And Spider-Man just says, "It's not my job."
Damn.
I kind of like in the movie more when he robs the guy blind, and he's like, I missed the part where that's my problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, at least in this script, it's built up to him not really being his problem because, you know, he hasn't been crime fighting really up to this point. He's been appearing on variety shows, doing tricks at parties, but he hasn't really done much crime busting yet.
No, he hasn't.
He's
Yeah,
just
so
hanging out.
Which sort of
So-
leads into what happens next.
yeah, do you want to take this part, Jack?
Sure. I mean, if you're watching anything about Spider-Man and you know anything about Spider-Man, you know what happens next. The robber, runs past Spider-Man. He doesn't do anything. The Spider-Man just returns to his car to get back with Uncle Ben and drive home, and he doesn't find the car. Instead, he finds Uncle Ben on the sidewalk, surrounded by people tending to him. Uncle Ben was shot because, to get away, these guys carjacked someone, and the person they carjacked just so happened to be Uncle Ben.
Yeah, it's always a carjacking. Like, Uncle Ben is always outside his house when it comes to the movies. I think he,
Yeah.
died in his own home in comics.
Mhm.
Like, I always have a hard time remembering that because I just always remember the movie. But yeah, so Spider-Man tracks down the killer. He finds the guy. They get into a pretty cool fight. And he sees
This is really his first instance of crime fighting, and it's not motivated to be good, but it's instead motivated for vengeance.
yes. So I think James Cameron got this part right. Like the origin slightly within itself from Amazing Fantasy, which I've actually read and I think it holds up pretty well. So Spider-Man notices the killer has the tattoo on his hand, and he realizes it was the thief. And all of the oh my gosh, I could have stopped this guy, but I didn't. It hits him. And so next, Peter webs him up and then tries to take him to the police. And the police are like, what the hell is this? And the burglar is like, help! Help! This guy's a lunatic! And basically the cops are like, well, take your mask off. We're gonna arrest you. And then he gets into a scuffle with them, and then Peter runs away from the cops.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have a reason to believe him.
Yeah. All they know, he's just some sort of crazy guy in a mask.
They honestly have no reason to believe he's the real Spider-Man either, too.
Are you the real Spider-Man?
Well, that becomes a plot point later, but I think at this point there's no Spider-Man imposters yet.
Yeah, I know, but
No.
you never know where someone's gonna try and get a quick buck.
Yeah.
It's like those cheapo movies where Finding Nemo comes out one day and the next day Finding Jesus, the fish movie, comes out.
That's my
Yeah.
favorite.
So anyway, from after that, Spider-Man starts doing, he starts doing his crime fighting, but again, it's motivated by vengeance, and he's kind of just stopping crimes where he can find them, and it culminates up to him he encounters a group of cops, and the cops are beating up a man. Spider-Man doesn't know if he's innocent or not, but it's a pretty bad beating, so Spider-Man jumps in to stop him. And, in the process of fighting these cops, gets branded a wanted criminal. So now he's even, not even seen as friendly by the police department.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He becomes the propaganda gets put up about him about being a menace, and it's all these stories are being run by a local TV station owned by J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah,
Wow.
Triple J comes into the picture.
Yeah, I read that Michael Douglas might have been in the running for J. Jonah Jameson.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, that happens. Talking about all of that, and then he can't make any more public appearances, so now he's broke again.
Yeah, he just turns to the crime fighting. Although the only good press that he gets is that he starts developing a neighborhood local legend sort of myth around him, because like the cops don't like him, the media doesn't like him, but the people on the ground, when they encounter them, they're like, oh yeah, someone knows someone that got helped by Spider-Man.
Yeah, I love that stuff with superheroes.
And then there's a funny little scene where people like are interviewed on the streets and they're like, "What do you think of Spider-Man?" And so everyone thinks he's something else under the thing. In the description it says, "Black kids thinks he's black. White kids think he's white. Hispanic people think he's Hispanic." Yeah, and there's one line here I think is kind of funny. It says, Spider-Man ain't no white dude." The
Hmm.
what I'm saying. See his moves? Definitely a brother. And then one guy saying, "No way, home. My brother knows a guy that talked to him once, man. Italians think he's Italian, and gays think he's gay." That's what's written on here.
Reddit moment.
Yeah, so Peter goes back into class and into biology with Mary Jane, and then when they're working on their project together and they're almost done with it, he discovers that Mary Jane has become a big fan of Spider-Man. She thinks he's mysterious and a little romantic.
Oh, well, lucky for her.
And Peter's just like, please. And so later on, Mary Jane's walking home and she gets followed by a bunch of guys and they jump her. Basically, what happens in the first Spider-Man movie. And Spider-Man just pops out of nowhere and moves up the attackers. And his dialogue here is so hilarious. "If you worthless chunks of vomit show your faces around here again, I'll decorate my Christmas tree with your intestines. Got it?"
Okay, Batman.
Yeah, it's like even too dark for Batman. Even Batman wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
He'd be like,
He wouldn't have to, honestly. Just like seeing the man.
Batman couldn't say that because half of that threat was killing someone, ripping out their intestines. Batman could never threaten someone with killing them.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So he saves Mary Jane. Those guys run away, picks up Mary Jane, and then whisks her away, and they sit on the steel globe from the 64 World's Fair. And so they just kind of have like a nice touching moment. Like, we're not there yet.
Although
We're not at the bridge.
they do share a kiss on this scene. They share a kiss through the mask, which is weird. But
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, so Peter meets up with Strand. So I'm not going to break down everything that happens in this thing, but so Strand meets up with Peter in like a big, basically, it looks like a mansion in a high-rise building. That's what it
yeah,
looks
Strand has a Manhattan mansion.
Yes. And so, Boyd Sandman is there, and they talk about he's a low-paid maintenance guy at a military research project. Something to do with SDI. They're experimenting with physics, and one of the tunnels collapsed and exposed him, and he just became sand. Like, that's how he just got his powers.
Yeah, they basically give us Sandman's backstory.
Yeah. And so Strand basically wants Peter to join him. The Cordelia is there, Boyd is there, and so Peter is told by Strand that they are extraordinary individuals, joined by fate. He sought out Sandman, and he is still looking for like superhumans. He's like, "Look at us, we're special. We're not freaks. Like, we can be something. We can be something great. And Peter's just awed by like all the stuff in his mansion, all the millions of dollars worth of antiques and art.
Also, like for Strand at least, more importantly to him, for Peter is, so Strand goes off and recruits Sandman, and while he values Sandman as like an enforcer, Sandman's he comes across as dumb on the script, whereas Strand sort of approaches Peter in the sense of like a mentor. He wants to have an apprentice. He wants to have someone to shape his legacy. Mm-hmm. Which, how old is Strand supposed to be? He's supposed to be at least middle age, but like,
I would take it like 40s, maybe 50s.
So yeah, maybe a time to look for an apprentice. But yeah, he's caught up by how intelligent Peter is, I would say.
Yeah, so basically Strand offers him power, and the idea that he even shows off Cordelia for a second. It's like, you think she's pretty? Well, you can have all the Cordelias you want with all the power you have. You can do anything you want, and we can stand out among everyone else. We are the highest common denominator, not the lowest. We are human evolution. Kind of talking like Magneto a little.
Yeah, he starts doing that superhuman Nazi type shit where, they think they're better than everyone just because they have powers.
Well, what do you can do, mister? Look at you.
The Voldemort Palpatine Magneto special.
Yeah, basically.
With or without nuts.
I won't lie, I don't think this is a very inspired villain in this script.
No. Does have a moment later, like towards the very end, that I'm like, okay, this is cool. But yeah. So Spider-Man's like, no, you're crazy, and they get into a fight, and Strand just blasts Spider-Man with his electricity powers. And I love the description here, where each blast costs Strand millions as he destroys his own place, growing more frustrated as he tries to hit Peter and can't. And they mentioned Peter's spider sense, where it's been used pretty effectively here. I hate that the movies don't talk about his spider sense that often.
Yeah.
Yeah, then Sandman joins in on the fight, and they exchange blows, and then Peter gets away.
Yeah, Peter ends up there's like a big water like aquarium fixture that like Strand has like a weird affinity for eels, which I guess sort of makes sense given his power.
Eels.
Yeah, he's got a whole fish tank full of them. Peter knocks that over and is able to get away in the destruction. So Peter goes off back to his regular everyday life, but Strand, not one to be deterred, decides to start a media campaign against Spider-Man. He basically, what does he do? He sets up J. Jonah Jameson with his own show, right? And the show has to be 24/7 Spider-Man coverage, and it all has to be negative.
That's a good excuse for him to do it.
I mean, yeah. And he also, Strand hires body doubles or imposters that dress up like Spider-Man and go around and commit crimes, like beat up old ladies and shit.
Wow.
So the anti-Boy Scouts.
Yeah, the public opinion of Spider-Man starts to turn because Strand basically wants to break Peter down to the point where he's gonna come crawling back to him.
I am all that you have.
I am your mother.
Yeah, it's like they will turn on you in the end.
I don't mean to deter things, but I have to ask, can we take a quick break because I really have to go pee-pee?
I think this is a good time for Lex and I to go run our 5 minutes. And then we will be back after our break. And we're back.
Just returned from hell.
Is that what he calls it?
I don't know. What does Lucifer Morningstar call it?
Vacation?
He calls it home.
holiday.
He calls it your mother's house. Where were we last with our script, gentlemen?
So from what I was looking at, uh, uh, so Peter is treated like a criminal, tries to help some people, and he is just in such distress. There's like a bunch of paragraphs about him being a kid, being so overwhelmed. The tide of injustice and pain is too great, too overwhelming.
Very
Yeah.
grim, very dark.
Yes, it's overly Frank Miller. As much as I love Frank Miller, it's too much sometimes. Too much repetition.
He also has to, since he got his ass kicked by the Sandman in his last fight, his costume got all ripped up from like the sand particles, so he couldn't fix it. He had to go out and buy his own merch at a store because like his suit is popular enough now that people are making it in costume stores, so he has to go buy one.
Yeah, and he's making
That's-
no money off of it. He has to buy
his own merch. Yep,
That's God fucking.
James Cameron did it first. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, eat your heart out.
Yeah, that's right.
Spider-Man Enter the James Cameron verse.
That would be a good one.
Swinging around with the blue people.
In a submarine.
Oh my god, wait. I'm just realizing James Cameron has some weird thing about like weird body stuff. First, we're talking about Spider-Man and his
weird spinnerets.
yeah, and then you got Avatar with the weird tail sex thing.
From
You
the
have-
hair braids.
You have
Yeah.
Terminator with like cutting people open, and then there's still blood on the machine parts.
Yeah, which is weird because, like, come to think of it, why not just make the inside of the machine not blood red?
Yeah.
But we're getting sidetracked. Back to the things that James Cameron never made.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we get back to Peter's house, and Aunt May can't make house payments on just her social security check, and
Which means Aunt May is old enough to, she should be retired.
If she has the money to retire.
Yeah.
She's trying for social, but
Yeah.
should.
Oh, I skipped over a part. So Spider-Man stopped a bunch of drug dealers in his anger, and he fights them, and he takes like a wad of $100 bills, and so he brought it with him to Aunt May's, and so he took it with him and was like, she really needs like medical bills to be paid, like we need to like I need to do it. And so I think he considers giving it to her, and so he doesn't, or in case if she like no in case if like he has a little too much, he might still he might just buy a car or something like that.
Car.
So he
Spidey Mobile.
yeah, he considers all of his options, and then he realizes I could be like a criminal, and that's what they want. So cut to the top of the World Trade Center. He's alone up there. That's usually where he goes to think. And he has this little part where he's like, I figured being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man would get easier as I went. Well, I'm waiting. It's very Spider-Man line.
That is a very, very Spidey.
Which this is where the beginning cycles back to, because this was the beginning of the movie. He was on top of the World Trade Center.
Yeah. So he still has that money. And so he's like, the hell am I gonna do? So we cut to the next morning, a parking lot in a bad neighborhood, asphalt, chain link and graffiti, kids playing basketball. All of a sudden, suddenly, hundreds of bills come fluttering down into frame like green snow, scattering far and wide on the wind. And basically, he just throws the money into just a poor neighborhood. It's just like,
gives
it's
back
not
to the
mine,
community.
it belongs to people. Which I kind of like. I kind of like that.
Robin Hood. That's a good vibe for Spider-Man. Very
Yeah,
urban.
he was like, what was I gonna do? Track down all the crackheads and give it back? Anyway, I figure there's more than one way to be a saint in this world because he stole it from a bunch of drug dealers. So, you can't like find all the crackheads.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Meanwhile,
Strand
while
is
this is happening, Strand is still trying to fuck with Spider-Man. He's hiring more and more people to impersonate Spider-Man, and he's getting more newspapers to run bogus stories about Spider-Man being a dick.
yeah.
Dude's
But
got a chunky payroll.
meanwhile,
Yeah, I mean, he's
supposed to Mary
Like,
Jane.
the script describes him as Trump, but an asshole. So
I'm like,
How do you do that? How do you one-up Trump?
I don't know, get superpowers.
not once, but twice. Twice in this script do they say he's like Trump, but an asshole.
Yeah. But so MJ does like a TV spot, and she talks about how she thinks Spider-Man's great, and she feels like she can trust Spider-Man. She's like, no, Spider-Man's like a real hero. And so she's sitting by herself in like a lonely area, and Spider-Man drops down, and she's
Now
startled.
Spider-Man is being a voyeur, yes.
Yes. And so he does the Aladdin thing. He's like, do you still trust me? And her answer is a kiss. It's sweet and soulful. Her lips, separated by the sheer fabric of the mask, can still
Still
feel
kissing
his
the mask on, which is weird.
Yeah. Where are we going? It's a surprise. Cut to
the scene.
a Brooklyn
God.
Bridge. We cut to the Brooklyn Bridge. And so it says stunning aerial shot. You swing up. She screams at excitement when she's swinging like a roller coaster. And I think it would be a fun scene to look at. They're on top of the bridge tower. She's in awe of it. And so she is up against a wall with Peter. She stands with her back against a girder, needing to feel something solid. Spider-Man stands before a perfectly formed male silhouette with a soothing low voice. And so his
What?
dialogue is so creepy.
Yeah, I gotta hear this.
All right. And by the way,
read it out in full. Read what Peter says, Lex.
all right, and I'm gonna do this in my Discord mod voice, if you don't mind.
Do it in your Discord mod voice.
Which I don't know if we've covered yet, but all throughout this movie, Peter adopts like a deeper Spider-Man voice. He acts like a gruff, darker, sort of like what Christian Bale does for Batman.
Give me a
Oh
break.
God, I hope that wouldn't have been the movie where Spider-Man's just like, I'm the amazing Spider-Man. I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's how they describe it in the script. They say that he drops his voice and makes it rough.
Oh my God, he's gonna sound like Venom before.
But yeah,
But,
No,
lay it
he
on the
would
book.
sound like Venom. He would
It's
do
time
like
to go get him.
Give us the lines, Lex.
Yeah.
Say the
So
line, Bart.
who does the courtship among the spiders is highly ritualized. It varies from species to species. The male spider may circle the female or wave his front legs to signal that he is not prey.
Spider-Man moves in a hypnotic pattern, a hypnotic arc around her. He raises his hands in a dance-like motion, lowers them.
A female usually signals her willingness by an uncharacteristic passivity.
I don't think I've ever
MJ
been
takes
more
a deep
uncomfortable.
breath. Her lips tremble. Her knees are weak. Her eyes, though, are steady, gazing at the silhouette before her. She doesn't move or speak. He moves closer.
In certain crab spiders, such as, I'm not even going to pronounce this, the male will attach strands of silk to the female, tying her limbs.
Spider-Man moves
Oh,
his hands gracefully across her, and she sees the sheerest silk webbing glinting in the moonlight. First one wrist, then the other. Hypnotic movement in the moonlight. Her arms are bound to the wall. Her breathing gets more rapid.
This is too much. Since the female can break free at any time, the bonds have only symbolic significance. So she says the male must be very bold to take such liberties with the predatory female. Yes, he is very bold. But he must also trust her. He moves very close. Close your eyes.
And then
Lex,
they kiss.
I swear to God,
Yes.
if I wake up and you're standing over me doing, I'm not gonna be honest. I'm not gonna fight back.
Ba-da-ba-da-bweep. No.
Oh no! So he removes his mask and kisses her. Their mouths slowly, very sensually devour each other.
Which, oh God, please.
Their
I
mouths
don't even wanna-
devour each other. I didn't need to hear that.
Yeah, no.
I know, it's horrifying to read. So
My
then
whole
we-
body shuddered.
Yes.
Is there a possible way to make the wording in this any more disgusting?
Doing my voice, the voice that I just did.
No.
I just did the "Hello, kitten" voice.
You gotta put it in the Gilbert Gottfried voice.
Okay, that's a great idea. Courtships among the spiders are highly ritualized.
Please, no.
The
Please.
female
Each other's mouths.
Well, this is a better time than any to crack open a Sam Adams.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Get comfortable.
Sponsored.
Oh yeah, let's skip past it. So, cut to Mary Jane the next day in school. She's humming happily. She's basically got the song "I Just Had Sex" playing in the back of her mind. That's not in the description, but I'm just.
I'm so terrified of her being like spider baby problems.
Bro,
Yeah.
she's so into it. She had a full character arc over the evening because in this scene, she's supposed to have a tarantula crawling across her arm. She's totally conquered her arachnophobia. And, like, now she's not friends with any of her friends anymore because they all think she's disgusting for having spiders crawl on her now.
Now it's almost become a kink, which is uncomfortable to say. I
Yeah,
hate
not gonna
saying
lie,
that, but
like, a 16, 17-year-old high school kid, this is where your kinks come from.
yes.
Yikes. And I thought cartoons were the cause of weird fetishes.
I need a shower just after hearing that.
Yeah. But so anyway, after that madness, Strand is in his living room. Boyd is showing him a videotape he shot the night before where it apparently Boyd was hiding in the bushes of where Spider-Man took Mary Jane and hoisted her.
It
And
makes
so
two
he
people in this movie that are voyeurs.
Yeah, so he edited the clip to make it look like Spider-Man just kidnapped Mary Jane, even
Yeah,
edited
he
out
put the kiss out.
Oh wow.
Gets there. Then Mary Jane ends up missing because Sandman like followed her and put her to sleep with chloroform, and she woke up in Strand's place.
Yeah, which then they released that clip to the media to basically pin Mary Jane's disappearance on Spidey.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
So yeah, now Spidey's in some deep shit. Like now, like the police are actively hunting for him.
So
They put out an Amber Alert for Mary Jane.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, so Spider-Man goes to the mansion in Midtown, and he finds Cordelia dead. Strand must have been in a hurry, so he didn't have time to jumpstart her heart after a farewell kiss. And he sees a VCR, and he hits play, and it's a video of Strand with Mary Jane in frame saying, "Meet me at top of the World Trade Center." And in that moment, a SWAT team arrives at the mansion being like, "Don't move, freak!" Like, all of that. And Spider-Man has a very Spider-Man response about that. He says, "Sorry, boys, can't stay." And then, leaps up as they open fire and makes his way to the World Trade Center.
Which also, Strand uses that opportunity to pin the murder of Cordelia on Spider-Man. So now Spider-Man's got both a kidnapping and a murder that the police want him for.
Wait. So you said this movie was coming out in supposed to be like early 90s, right?
Yes.
1990, probably?
So 1990 is when they started. 90s is when it cut them out.
Leo would have been like the exact age for Peter Parker. I just realized that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so they meet up, they confront, and Strand has Mary Jane. He's holding her hair, like her by the back of her hair. And so he says, "I don't care about her now. I don't care about her now that you're here. She was just a lure." He lets go of her. He says, "It's hard to get a meeting with you, young man." So MJ goes to Spider-Man. She seems okay. Then Peter sees, and then Strand just tries to talk to Peter one last time, trying to convince him, being like, "Okay, let's see if we can do this one last time." And so he looks down on the World Trade Center. He just views himself like a god. He says, "You're either a predator or prey in this world, a killer or a victim. People are by nature violent, stupid, confused, and greedy. Why waste your gift on the ungrateful masses who would love to see your mask ripped off and see you dragged through the slime?" So all of it is just to get Peter to change his morality. Yeah, so he also makes the line of, "It's a myth that people need heroes. People hate heroes. Heroes make them feel bad." Yeah.
Reminds me of a certain line that was written a lot better in a movie with a guy in a green suit played by Willem Dafoe.
Yes,
Are
exactly.
you talking about American Psycho?
Yes! You wore green in that one, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Bateman was Spider-Man. Did you not know that?
Let's see Strand's car.
Yeah. So he's still talking. He steps up to Peter and he says, "I want this to work out. You're a smart kid. Like those phony bracelets. That was a good idea." Peter's like, "What are you talking about?" He takes off Peter's wristbands. Actually, no. Peter takes his wristbands off. Is basically like, "Is this what you're talking about?" It's like, "Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. I know that those weren't web shooters you made. You can actually do that."
Well,
And
Strand doesn't. Strand does know this, but Mary Jane doesn't. So she, seeing this, is a little horrified to see the little spinnerets protruding out of Peter's wrists.
Like those, you guys remember Misadventures of Flapjack?
Yeah, it's like a gross up shot.
It's like what I imagine is that weird professor inventor dude that just like claimed he had inventions, but it was like, I have this camera, but it's just a kid in the box drawing a picture of what he's seeing and then pushing it out the slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So they talk, and Strand reveals that he actually has a stack of hundreds of dollar bills, 6 feet tall by 8 feet long. Mary Jane gasps.
Yeah. It turns out to be about $250 million worth.
Yeah. Yeah,
And he's basically prepared to give it to Spider-Man, right?
yeah, he's like basically like, I'll give it all to you.
This is his like final bargaining chip to try to buy Spider-Man over to his side.
Yeah, and Peter says, I took some money once. It was easy. It was just sitting there. It was the solution to all my problems, and there was nobody to stop me. Nobody could touch me, so I took it. And you know what I found out? What, son? There is a line you don't cross, and that sometimes you only find the line by tripping over it, and the first time you cross it. Once you do, you always know right where you are. Oh, please. Next you're going to tell me you gave the money back. More or less. This is a disappointment. And then Strands grabs Mary Jane again, pulls her away, and he starts electrocuting her.
How does he get electrocuted though, Lex?
Doesn't he kiss her on the forehead?
He straight up, is it on the forehead or is it straight up on the lips?
Grabs her head and kisses her.
Lovely.
I think it says
He's
on the
putting like a Tom Brady, like like to his kid.
Either way, it's weird because he's supposed to be in his 40s and she's a high schooler.
And his line is so awful. He says, "See how power turns women on."
Meanwhile, it's literally doing the like the Beetlejuice effect where her hair is just standing straight up on end from the electricity coursing through her.
Yeah. And
like Tom and Jerry.
Spark.
Oh my god, it's the scene from Home Alone 2 with where he grabs the battery. Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets away, she slaps him, and Mary Jane starts to convulse wildly. And so Peter fights Sandman. And so she's shocked, and Mary Jane is shocked so much. She is still. And
Peter, her eyes roll back.
Yeah. And so Strand's villain retort is, what should we do? Call 911. And then Peter's response is, I'll kill you, motherfucker. You hear me? You're dead, you sick bastard.
Which is pretty hardcore.
Pretty hardcore.
I mean, it's a Spider-Man line.
It's a reasonable response, but like,
like the Punisher or Deadpool.
Yeah, or even us.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. Yeah, so Strand puts his hand on Mary Jane's sternum and zaps her with a defibrillating pulse. And so she comes back to life. And he has another bad line where it says, think there's real electricity between us, don't you? And then Peter just lunges and then attacks. He
was able to separate MJ from Strand, and basically Strand and Peter go off the side of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, Sandman. What happens to Sandman? Sandman chunks dissolve into puddles, and sand quickly flow together, forming back to a human shape because he's been pushed down so much. And so, he fires a lightning bolt near Sandman. I don't know if this happens now or later. No, it's a little later. But so we're at a part where they're on the roof of the tower. Spider-Man gets MJ to a stairwell. He gets the door off and tells her to go down and don't turn back. And she says, "I love you." And Spider-Man's reaction is cool.
Fucking pulls a Han Solo.
I was just thinking that, like, don't say "I know."
I know.
Yeah.
I think cool is just as gay.
Yeah,
Pardon my French.
or depending on how it would be delivered.
Yeah,
Written, it's weird, but if it was delivered like cool, then
Well, we already know it wouldn't be delivered. It would be delivered very edgy in this movie because everything in this movie screams very edgy. So
literally.
or maybe it's like a cool or something.
Maybe it's like an immature, like, cool, like a Peter Griffin kind of like.
But
yeah. So anyway, Spider-Man gets MJ to safety. Then he goes back up onto the roof to fight the final battle between him and Strand and Boyd.
Yeah, and there's a part where Cameron writes, "I don't want to bore you with details about the fight, but so he says the fight ensues, cool stuff happens, and Strand blasts Sandman, and Sandman turns into glass. The Peter costume is so battered, and I think Sandman gets destroyed, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah, he
think
gets
he's
turned
coming
into
back from
glass.
glass.
I think it's something like, yeah. Spidey sees Strand like charging up a big blast of electricity, and Spidey's able to like get in the way or like dodge behind Sandman, and Strand hits Sandman instead, and it basically just turns into a big glass statue. Which
Yeah.
honestly is a pretty cool way of going out.
Pretty cool
Yeah,
image.
honestly.
But yeah, that takes care of Sandman, so now it's just Spidey versus Strand.
Yeah, they have a fight and they both fall off the side of the building.
Mm.
I think they're attached to one another.
Yeah, Spidey's like webbed them up, so they're stuck together.
Wow. What a shot.
Actually, I don't think they're stuck together, but I think Spidey has him webbed, and then Spidey's trying to web the building as they fall down to catch them. But the problem is between both of their weight, the web keeps breaking.
Yeah, and I love this description here. From a distance, it looks like some kind of fantastic Jacob's ladder as the arcs light up at the gap between the two towers. I love that little reference there. Still need to see Jacob's Ladder. I know Zach's a fan of that movie.
No, I am that movie's my baby. That's
Ben's
like
more of a fan of it, but I do like it.
Silent Hill 2 the movie, dude.
That's so yeah. Strand falls down. Same as Peter. Peter fires a web at a wall. It sticks. Peter stays. Oh, wait, it breaks. They're going too fast as they're falling down. Spidey swings towards the tower, and he and Strand slam against the side of the building.
Spidey's okay, but Strand essentially
okay,
gets like bug on a windshield.
Yes,
Oh,
Strand gets bugged on a windshield, which you'd think would be like the death of him.
He's
But
basically dead. The script describes him as broken and dying, but he's like when an anime villain gets their ass kicked, just like semi-conscious.
Hanging on just for that last gamer moment where he's like, I'm fucking Spider-Man, and it just steps on his head.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, he does go out on a one-liner. So
yeah, he does, and this part's actually kind of cool. So it says Strand's bleeding, and he's broken, and he's dying, and Peter's mask is ripped half off by the fight. He pulls it off his head and shows his face to Strand for the first time. Strand's like, "What's your name, kid?" He's like, "Peter Parker." It's like, "Peter Parker, So what are you, senior in high school? Yeah, I graduate next week. Strand chuckles weakly, coughing blood from ruptured lung. He says, unbelievable. And then he dies.
He just fucking dies right there.
My
Yeah.
dude just nay-nayed.
I mean, it's
Like
kind of a
Ben
cool
Nene.
Fall off
scene.
the World Trade Center.
I mean, it seems like kind of like a cool scene, like a unbelievable, like a almost like a well played, my adversary, something
Yeah.
like
I got beat by a senior in high school.
yeah.
So that's the end of the main story. They do the cleanup. They do the couple. They don't say in the script, but a couple weeks later, they rebuild the top of the World Trade Center buildings that they destroyed, including putting like a new radio antenna up there, which Spidey then makes his hideout. He
Yeah.
sort of chills in the World Trade Center radio tower.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
so
sick.
and so what he does with the $250 million is he just makes it rain. He makes it rain with $250 million.
Spreads it all the way
rains.
up and down like every borough of New York.
Yeah.
Does he keep some for himself at all?
They don't say. You would think he should. I mean, he's doing a lot of work for the city.
Yeah, so I would at least keep a few bucks.
Go get
Enough
yourself
for
a
his
really
Aunt
good
May
sandwich.
medical
Yeah.
bills.
Yeah, pay
Yeah.
for Aunt May. Get yourself a good sandwich. Get rid of the rest.
Yeah, and so we cut to Peter at school. It's the end of the school year. You know, he's bruised, he's banged up from the fights. You know, they think he just fell off his moped or something like that.
Classic
MJ
Peter.
MJ's back too. She doesn't hang out with her old friends anymore. They think she's odd now, and she doesn't care. She's happy with it. And Peter's little VO was there was still the small matter of the woman I loved, which is kind of sweet, but it's just irradiated from a creepy scene. So apparently on their science project they got an A plus, and so she gets a great grade and graduates with a B, and she doesn't care about the car anymore. She's like, I want to go to a different college and then try to go to med school, which
Yeah.
is very, very different from what Mary Jane wants to do. She wants to be an actress, but I at least kind of liked this idea because later on they say he like says a line where it's like, so we're both in different colleges, and you know she is graduating top of her class. I'm not because of like my dual life, but we still talk. And so Peter is so before all that, Peter's in the hallway with Mary Jane, and so they're talking a little bit. Mary Jane says that she wanted to thank him for all the wonderful things of helping her with her project and just helping her find out who she is, and she kisses him. So Peter gets confident, and then Peter says, Mary Jane, close your eyes, and she does, and he says in Spidey's voice, do you still trust me?
Which is another thing that makes me think that this movie would have a deep, gruffled Spider-Man voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she's like, oh my God, Peter, are you really him? I mean, Peter's like, shh.
He holds it that long.
No, I'm just making it that long.
Oh, okay.
So they start to kiss, and I think then they start to get together, and then Flash grabs Peter by the shoulder, spins him around, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're with this pencil neck. You're still with me, aren't you, Mary Jane? You know, being a total asshole. And Peter still describes the whole like spider stuff. He's like, when two male wolf spiders, Pardosa, encounter one another in the presence of a female, they assume ritual threat postures.
Yeah, at this
So
point,
she
Flash,
finds it very.
walks Peter around the corner to like try to beat Peter up, and then Peter just like makes Flash beat himself up by just getting out of the way of his punches, and like Flash punches the wall and stuff.
Yeah, Peter ducks and Flash hits a brick wall.
So it's very similar to Spider-Man 1's situation where he's like doing backflips and dodging the
Yeah, basically the same.
punches.
Insanity.
Yes, but Flash trips on a piece of silk and cartwheels into a wall. He's like, you should really watch where you step. Here, let me help you up. And he helps him up, and then he like attaches something to it, attaches a web to his jacket, and then shoots the other end to a nearby railing. Peter dusts Flash jacket off and turns, walking away. Flash roars and charges at him, only to get jerked short like a mean dog on a short chain. Which would have been funny to see.
Yeah, we should have seen more like that.
That would have been fun. All the kids standing around the schoolyard laugh uproaringly. Peter grins and holds up his hands. I never laid a glove on him, I swear. Which a lot of the quips he has here are very, very Spider-Man. So I love that everybody cheers, because the truth is we do really like heroes, especially when they're underdogs. So
Yeah.
So Peter he has his little end line. Mary Jane and I got accepted to different colleges. Wouldn't you know it? But we see each other every weekend. Her grades are better than mine, but I blame it on the heavy hours. It's not easy being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Take it out for him. Takes it out of you. Well, it's a school night. You gotta fly. Be good. He pushes off from the mast, swinging in an arc out over the edge of the roof. Hang out web line, he drops like an express elevator toward the street far below, tilting down to follow as he becomes a black dot above the sea of lights, a tiny spider going home. The end.
And so that is James Cameron's Spider-Man that we never got.
Yes. I'm glad that this didn't happen.
I, for the most part, reading through this, am glad as well, but there are definitely some aspects of this that I would like to see in a potential future Spider-Man project.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Some of its ideas are definitely not bad, but I like a movie for its highs and lows, and this is a movie where I feel like maybe it could have happened. It's probably better it didn't.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was interesting that I've not seen done with Spider-Man before is that this script came across with like a very real sense of body horror that comes with the Spider-Man transformation. Like in this movie, he has the spinnerets that come out of his wrist, and the script makes it sound like it's going to be visceral and sort of gross looking, so much so that he has to hide them under bracelets. Or the script makes reference to, they make reference to The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which I think is an apt comparison to Spider-Man, considering it's once again a story of a man who wakes up to find he's like a bug one morning. Of course, in The Metamorphosis, he's much more a bug, but yeah, it's just horrific in that sort of sense, and I think that would be an interesting thing to explore, how Spider-Man reacts to transforming into what some people would probably consider a monster.
Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to talk about briefly, because this is us just wrapping it all up, because we went over all the big story beats.
Yeah.
Then it's pretty much almost the whole script. I think that's what we'll do from now on. If we have like a full script of something online, we'll just go over all of it. Or if there's just little bits and pieces, we'll go over all of the story beats.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, because I liked doing that. That was fun.
I like it this way more when we guide each other through it instead of like acting through the script or anything else that could come up like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to talk about was some of the casting rumors that were around, and there were a lot of rumors. Rumor had it for the longest time that it was like there were going to be multiple Spider-Man villains. Rumor was going around that Kevin Spacey was going to be Norman Osborn, which I could totally see and probably would have been great, but Kevin Spacey now, oof. It was just Norman Osborn in real life.
Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum,
Ba-dum,
ba-dum,
ba-dum,
ba-dum.
ba-dum, 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 ba-da-da-da-dum.
Exactly.
So it said Leonardo DiCaprio probably would have been Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and like you said, Zach, he probably would have been the perfect age for that.
Yeah.
It said Nikki Cox was rumored to be Mary Jane Watson, and the rumor had that like Arnold was also going to be in the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold
He
Schwarzenegger as Boyd, please.
I think that would have been better. Rumor had it for a long time that he was going to be Doc Ock.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I don't know how finished the script is supposed to be. The script doesn't mention Doc Ock or Norman
No,
Osborn at all, but
no. I feel like they just created their own like weird villain. It's like when you watch the Incredible Hulk or the Wonder Woman and the Carter show, like those shows from like the 70s, and it's just like no notable villains. It's just whatever weird thing comes to fruition or
Oh,
the hero.
absolutely. Yeah,
And it's like,
it's
yeah, so instead of Spider-Man fighting like Sandman or Electro or Green Goblin, it's some weird businessman has a mind control ability, and for whatever reason, he wants to rob 3 banks at once. Can Spider-Man save the city and stop his mega laser? And it's like, ugh,
I know. Give me a break.
yeah, so weird and uncreative. But yeah, and I looked into the reason why this movie didn't get made, which is now what we're officially getting into. Why was this not made? So apparently there was this producer named Menahem Golan. He's a Israeli film producer, and for years he tried his best to get Spider-Man to make Spider-Man into a movie, and he wanted credit for that. In James Cameron's contract for Korolko Pictures is that he had final say on everything because uh, Golan was part of it slightly. Uh, Cameron was like, "No, I don't want your name on here because you didn't produce it. I did. I'm the one that made this." So it was basically there's two egos clashing, and then it led to a lot, and it led to Golan going to different studios and being like he claims he's the one that had the rights, and that's what prevented the movie from getting made for a long time. It was a bunch of just lawsuits and different studios that were just going back and forth and just saying like, no, we own Spider-Man, no, we own Spider-Man, no, we own Spider-Man, we're gonna sue you, we're gonna sue you, we're gonna sue
That's
you.
been going on forever.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
but
funny how
it's
that still is a
simplified
problem today.
now. Like now it's simplified with just it being owned by Sony, and Marvel kind of owns it. Like it's at least it's like 2 companies. This was like 7 different companies, and it took uh Kuroko 21st Century Films and Marvel to all 3 go bankrupt for anything to happen.
Damn, even in real life,
Insane.
people don't like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Gonna split
And
his intellectual property across 7 studios.
yeah. It was so it took a while to finally get it made, go through all the lawyers and the red tape, and that was kind of the reason why James Cameron didn't do it. And I think he just lost interest as time went on. He could
Yeah,
have
Leo
done
got
it. He
too
could have
old.
come
That's the
back and
problem.
done it. Oh, sorry, could you say?
Leo got too old for the role. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's too old, as in the way he viewed some of his ex-girlfriends.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum.
Um,
But yeah, that's our whole thing on James Cameron's canceled Spider-Man film. This was a pretty long episode and a pretty great episode.
That's a
Yeah.
wrap on
Yeah.
episode 1, guys.
Yeah, so thank you all for listening, and we hope that you join us for our next episode, whatever it may be. I have a few ideas. I'm starting to build. I'm gonna put this on a new YouTube channel called uh, Canceled Media Presents, and we are going to have our own like social media accounts, and we're going to have a social media account for this and all of that. We're still building up. I'm just letting all you guys know. Don't worry, we'll give you information on it. But
You'll get your check in the mail.
until we officially set that up, everyone here, where can everyone find everyone on social media?
Twitch.tv/Liquid Lunacy, or my Twitter, Liquid Lunacy, or my TikTok, Liquid Lunacy was taken, or my website. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben. What about you, Zach?
you can reach me at Zachary Lambert. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a website, Vimeo, if you want to keep up with any of my projects. And
All right, Jack.
Oh, I'll be around. I don't have anything to plug, so
I am Lex of Power on YouTube. I am Alex Perillo on Instagram and Lex Perillo on Facebook. And I'm Lex of Power on Twitter. And so I have my very own website, Alex Perillo, videographer. And my company name, my production company name is Alpha Omega Productions. And I hope to get more of it started. So thank you all for listening. Have a great day. Let's say goodbye, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
take care, everyone.
good night. Sleep tight.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.